So once again, in your homework, you'll find that from Monday, you'll find that we have you writing 2 deductive arguments and 2 inductive arguments. And then previously you had the assignment to write 2 simple arguments. And frankly, to be honest with you, I'm going to look to see if you did. I'm not even going to look at them because no one cares. But your 2 deductive and your 2 inductive arguments, those do matter. And then today we're going to add another layer to that, and I'm going to give you another assignment. In fact, if you look in your Google Classroom right now, you'll see that that assignment is already there for you. So the separate Google document that we've been adding to here over the last day, the last assignment has now been added. It will be at the end of today's class, and so you guys can see that. So the Google document you've been working on, just follow those directions. You've already done some of it, and then you'll attach it to that homework and turn that in. It's going to be due on Monday of next week. And so today, rather than giving you sort of this assignment that is Jordan Peterson arguing with Kathy Newman, that sort of thing that you already did. Now it's going to be working on what we've been looking at specifically in class, these arguments. In fact, we might even have a little bit of time at the end of class today for you to work on those a little bit more. Additionally, you'll note that in the Google Classroom for this period, I also have listed the slides for the PowerPoint that we've been going through. And so you can look at those as well. If you want to go back and look at the examples, you probably will want to go back and look at the examples of the different types of arguments that we've been talking about. Okay, so right now I'm going to share the screen with you guys, and we're going to talk about the difference between valid arguments and invalid arguments, true arguments and arguments that are untrue or false arguments, and we're going to put inductive argumentation completely aside for now. So for today's lesson, no more inductive arguments. Now we're speaking directly about deductive arguments. So once again, this was your assignment, if you remember from last time, and you can keep working on that today. It's not due till Monday, so use it, do it at your own time. And now we're going to be moving on to validity versus truth. So let's talk a little bit about this. Can an argument be valid but not true? What do you think? And you might say, I'm not exactly sure what that word means, but that's okay. You've heard it used before though, right? You've heard the word valid. Well, that's a valid point, or that's a valid argument. You've heard that. Can an argument be valid but not true? What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Can every proposition within an argument be true, but the reasoning be invalid? What do you think? Yeah. And so today we're going to be looking at the difference between arguments that are true and false, valid and invalid. And I think there is some confusion for people that if it sounds true, the reasoning must be true, but that's not. That must be good reasoning, but that's not correct. Or if the conclusion is false, the reasoning must be bad. That's also not correct. So let's separate these two concepts right now, and then we'll look at a variety of different examples to try to determine whether these arguments are true or untrue, valid or invalid. Once again, kind of pulling these two concepts apart and looking at these things distinctly. Definitions first before we do practicing. So what does validity mean? A deductive argument is valid when the premises provide conclusive grounds for the truth of the conclusion. Now that might seem a bit abstract for you, and so we will look at some concrete examples to help illustrate that. But I think maybe a better way of examining whether an argument is actually valid. So right now we're not talking about truth. Okay, truth is somewhere else, so don't worry about it. We'll get there. But the best way to determine whether an argument is actually valid is that you assume the premises are true, even if you know that they're not, right? If the premises are true, must the conclusion be true? If it's yes, the conclusion here must be true in this argument, then you have a valid argument. But if you say, you know what, there are other possible conclusions that one could draw because the argument is not like defined well enough, then you don't have a valid argument. Your argument would then be invalid. And so I think here we'll see the importance of having these things clearly defined, these arguments, the language that we use in creating these arguments, having clear definition, clear exclusive language really does make a big difference when trying to create a valid argument. Okay, what is truth? That's a really big question. In fact, you could actually take classes on that. And so the next definition here for truth is going to be a bit simplistic, and some of you may not like it for its simplicity. So let me acknowledge complexity before we embrace simplicity, okay? Complexity. And I know anytime I bring something like this up, Lindsay like shakes her head and just gets angry. So be prepared, Lindsay. You're not gonna you just be ready. It's very possible that we don't exist in the reality that we seem to think that we exist in. You have your own consciousness, but you do not tap into the consciousness of anyone else. There seem to be beings that are like you. They look like you, they act like you, but you are not them. They might just be things. You might be the only consciousness in the entire universe. And these other things are just there. These other things that look like people, including your friends and your parents. They're not actually conscious. You're the only conscious being. It's possible, I'm not saying it is. Or how about this? Our reality could be the passing thought of some sort of a conscious being where we exist momentarily, even with all of our memories, which aren't real. Your parents aren't real. Anything outside of your room right now is not real. You've only been existing for 5 seconds. Everything that you are imagining right now does not exist and never has. And you will cease to exist as soon as this being forgets about you, which will probably be in 2 minutes. Oh, by the way, time is a construct that is also involved in this imagined reality. That's possible. Are you doing okay, Lindsay? Yes. How many of you seen the movie The Matrix? That's almost required viewing for philosophy. Like you should watch that.
I've only seen parts of it.
But you understand the concept of it, where the reality that most of us are in is not really real. That's possible. I'm not saying that that's the case. Okay, so now that I've recognized that there's complexity there and that there is that there are a number of possibilities, let's do something really crazy. Let's do this. Let's accept that the reality that seems to exist does. So that my reality and your reality, when they overlap, and they often do, that these things are in agreement, right? And that this objective reality is objective beyond our personal experiences. That, in other words, that there is a thing such as reality, and reality is what it seems to be. What do you think of that? How many of you prefer that way of thinking, Lindsay? That reality is what it seems to be. Okay, the vast majority of you. Well, that's good. And so here is our definition of truth. Once again, please don't take this as being some sort of ontological definition of truth or a definition of truth in the deepest philosophical sense, but rather a working definition that we can use in examining these arguments. And so let's just accept reality as it seems to be. So a statement is true if it reflects reality. It's false if it doesn't. Not too complex. Okay. So now that we have these definitions, right? These definitions of validity and truth, and we recognize that an argument can be true, the premises can be true, but the reasoning is not valid, and the fact that you can have a valid argument where there are some untrue premises, and that leads to an untrue conclusion. Those things are all possible. So what I'm going to have you guys do at this point is take out your smartphone, and we're going to go back to the great Slido for more voting fun. And while you're doing this, I'll talk about my coffee cup. It says California. You might say, Mr. Cook, why do you have a coffee cup that has the word California on it? In fact, it's the California flag. Well, my son Henry went down to California in February before the corona got here, and he picked this out as my gift. Now, if you know me, I don't necessarily love California, but I do like bears, and there's a bear on this cup, and that's why my son has it. That's why he gave it to me. So there you go. All right, give me a thumbs up if you're logged in. Okay, good. Okay, so let's go to the first one here. And once again, ask yourself, are these premises true? That is, do they reflect reality? And is this logical deductive argumentation? Is it valid? Okay. First one. If it's Tuesday, we'll have chapel. We had chapel today, therefore it's Tuesday. And when you guys are happy with your answer on the Slido, give me the thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. I'm going to assume that a couple of 7. I'm going to assume that Ian's screen is frozen and keep going.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah, you must have missed that. Yeah, so you're supposed to give me a thumbs up when you were done.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so let's see what you guys put. So the vast majority of you put valid but true. Okay, let's go back and look at this again. If it's Tuesday, we'll have chapel. Is that true? Do we have chapel on Tuesdays? Like, is that true?
No.
No, it's not true. So most of you already got that wrong, right? We had chapel today. No, we didn't.
Oh,
and it's
wait.
not Tuesday, for goodness sake, people.
We
That's
did not
true.
assume you meant associated with our school, that you were just setting up a fact.
No, so very simply, does this reflect reality? Okay.
It could
So-
somewhere, and that's what I was going off of.
Oh, yeah, same.
Like, it's plausible.
Well, of course it's plausible, but notice the word wheel. We're talking about us.
There's plenty of other things that are real. Are you assuming that we are the only reality?
I'm assuming that we are the only ones in this Zoom session, and therefore we are the wheel. That's what I'm assuming. So change your vote now, if you to something that's a little bit better, and let's see what you guys put. All right. So now all of a sudden they have invalid, but false. I have okay. So that's good. Someone still's putting true. It's not. No, it's not true. Change that, someone. It's not true. This is not true. Okay. I guess we're not changing that. We fell asleep at the, okay, there we go. So I've got the majority of you saying invalid but false, but just by a little bit. So let's go back. Oop. So valid and false is shrinking. So I'm going to call on Ian. Ian, what did you put here?
I put invalid false.
Invalid?
Yes. What? Yes.
Okay, you're correct. It is invalid. Why is it invalid?
Just because we had chapel today doesn't necessarily mean it's Tuesday, because the first premise says that if it's Tuesday, we would have chapel. So if the conclusion was, if the second premise was it is Tuesday, then a correct conclusion would have been we had chapel today, but it doesn't necessarily work when it's flipped.
Yeah, you're exactly right. In fact, that's one of the best ways. If you, for those of you later on, when you're going to be doing the assignment that I have for today, are struggling with coming up with a true but invalid argument. And yeah, I have you try to write one of those where every premise and the conclusion are true, but it's invalid. Flipping one of the premises with the conclusion is a good way to make that happen. There's a little hint. Okay. If it's Tuesday, we'll have chapel. The argument does not specify that Tuesday, though, is the only day that chapel happens. And so if you wanted to make this valid, what would you have to do with the first premise? Somebody.
You would have to say that it was Tuesday first before the conclusion, like,
so we're leaving the conclusion as therefore it's Tuesday. How do you change the first premises, like change some words to make the first premises, to make it valid?
We have chapel only on Tuesdays? Or?
Yep. Notice the exclusive language. We only have chapel on Tuesdays. Now you can't come to any other conclusion. Does that make sense? Right? If you can come to a different conclusion based on the reasoning, then you don't have a valid argument. If that's the only conclusion you can come to, then you have a valid argument. And so the exclusive language, by adding in the word only here, that can really help make sense of this argument and make it valid. Okay, so let's try another one. So this is technically false and invalid. Let's try another one. And for this one, we're going to assume that the Christian view is correct, that God does exist. So if anyone puts false for this, you're not assuming correctly. We're assuming that God does exist. I know some of you may not believe that God exists. We're going to say that he does. So the question here really is this a valid argument or is this an invalid argument? And please change your answer on Slido. And then once you do, and you're happy with your answer there on Slido, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so I can see when we need to switch over and look at your answers. Got 1, 2, 3. Four, 5, 6, 7. Did you get it, Sophia? 8. Okay. I'm assuming that Anna has got her thumb up too. She's hiding in the corner. So let's look. So what did you guys say? Okay, so you can see that the majority says valid but false, but still 33% of you, that's a full third, it says it's invalid but false. And then I don't understand. Okay. Some of you, I guess, are just being ornery. So for those of you who say that it's, oh gosh, so now it's invalid. So for those of you who say that it's invalid, why would you say that it's invalid? What makes this invalid? Let's look at the argument again. What makes this argument invalid? Someone tell me. Half of you said invalid, so I'm calling on half of you right now. Ian. Oh, sorry, Celia, go. Shoot.
Go ahead and do Ian. It's probably better.
I didn't say invalid.
Yeah, I know you didn't.
Wait, but you still want me to explain why it's invalid?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Ian, tell me why it's valid.
Oh, why? Okay, why it's valid?
Look, I didn't see what you put, but I know you put, like, you have this stuff figured out. So
it's valid because there's only one possible conclusion that could be. I mean, yeah, I don't see another way I don't see another conclusion that you could draw from this.
Right. So once again, guys, just assume that each of the premises are true. So so let's assume this is true. If God exists, he's all powerful. If God exists, he is good. If a good and powerful God did exist, he would prevent suffering and evil. Let's just assume that that's true. Suffering and evil do exist. Can you come up with any other possible conclusion based upon those premises?
No.
No, you cannot. And so that makes this argument what?
Valid.
This is a valid argument. Now, of course, we Christians would say it's not true. You know, it's false. But look, it's valid. But in order for us to say that it is not true, we can't just say we disagree with the last proposition, right? That there is no God. We disagree with that. In order to be not an idiot, you have to also basically say what about one of the premises? That one of the premises is, starts with an F.
False.
False. There we go. And so which of these premises would most Christians, I think there's actually two that Christians could disagree with. Potentially the first one, because there are potentially some things that God cannot do. But the third one is usually the one that most Christians will disagree with. And look, it's obvious. Look, we live in Christians claim that God is powerful and loving, yet bad things happen. We don't believe that negates God's existence, right? And so I think that's usually the fairly obvious problem with this argument, where Christians would disagree with proposition number 3. Okay, any questions about that before we continue the next one? Okay, get ready with your Slido to change your answer based on this one. And by the way, looking at this, the reality is now, even though we haven't had a chapel yet, do you know when we're supposed to have chapels? I think you do. So let's look at the argument here. If it's Friday, we'll have chapel. It's not Friday, therefore we will not have chapel. Is that true? In other words, does that reflect reality? And yes, the wheel, that's us here in this Zoom session. If it's Friday, we'll have chapel. Is that true? It's not Friday. Is that true? Therefore, we will not have chapel. Is that true? Now, is it valid? And as soon as you guys have the answer, give me a thumbs up so that I can look at your results. Okay, the vast majority of you have given me the thumbs up. So let's take a look, see what you guys have put. We're still in like the 50% range here. Okay, so 67% say it's valid and true. 11% invalid and true, invalid and false. Okay. Okay, so let's go back and look at this. Let's start with the true. If it's Friday, we'll have chapel. Is that true or false?
True.
Keep yourselves and tell me.
True.
True.
It's true now. We're doing it on Fridays. It's not Friday. Is that true?
True.
Yeah.
Yes. We will not have chapel today. Is that true?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. So this is true. Now, Ian, my guess is you're the only one who got this right.
I guess. Unless I'm wrong.
What did you put?
Invalid true.
You are correct. So, somebody else, why is Ian correct and you are not? Can someone explain?
It's invalid because it doesn't specify that only Friday.
Yes, this is basically the exact same argument that we looked at 2 arguments ago, right? It's just as invalid as the other one. It's just that this one happens to have everything being true. It's just not a valid argument. And so if you want to make this a valid argument, what do you need to do?
Add the exclusive part, the only Friday.
Yes. So this is, I think, a good indication of how important it is to make sure that we are asking ourselves every time we look at the argument, if the premises are true, must the conclusion be true? And in this case, the answer is no. Because you could have chapel every day of the week. So you can't, because the argument doesn't specify. Therefore, you can't conclude that in that fashion. Okay, let's try another one. How many of you are feeling really confident here? How many of you are not feeling so confident here?
I'm in the middle.
In the middle. Okay, let's try another one. What is this? All, there's a handy word. Humans are mortal. Socrates is human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Please change on Slido your answer to appropriately reflect what this is. And then give me a thumbs up. Okay, good. Let's see what you guys put. And I'm hoping for good stuff here. Oh, good stuff. Oh, thanks be to God. You guys got it. You got it right. This is exactly right. That was valid and true. Good for you. Everyone got that right. I like that.
We're not failures, yay.
What was that?
We're not failures, yay.
Yay. Okay, continuing. Let's look at another one. Is this true? Is this false? Is this valid? Is this invalid? Only presidents have the privilege of living in the White House. Melania Trump has the privilege of living in the White House. Therefore, Melania Trump is president. True, false, valid, invalid. All right, Ian's giving me a thumbs up. Anyone else? Okay, about half there. Lindsay, how you doing?
My dog's right here, so she's begging.
Oh,
That's just why I keep looking down.
okay, that's fine. Sounds good. Okay, so let's see what you guys put. Okay, so the vast majority of you said this was invalid and false. 44% of you said it was valid but false. So I'm going to let Ian share with us what Ian put and then let you guys change your answers accordingly. Ian, what did you put?
Valid false.
You put valid false. How many of you did put valid and false? Let me see your hands. Valid and false. Okay. So that's correct. What makes this valid? Are you guys okay?
No. How can it be valid if the first point is wrong? How can it be?
That's why it's
The word only.
That's why it's false. Because we separated truth and validity. Remember that? We're not asking. So once again, to determine if it's valid, you assume everything to be true. Does that make sense? So when you ask the question, is it valid? You don't care about truth. Truth is irrelevant. So throw truth out for the first question. If this is true, must the conclusion also be true? And if the answer is yes, then it's valid. Then you ask the question, but is it true? Well, in this case, the answer is no. And so that makes valid, but false. Get it? You got it now?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so.
Let's try another one.
Another one.
Another one. Let's face it, I think we need to try another one. Okay. Oh, never mind. I guess I don't have another one. Well, sorry, that's the last one I have. Thought I had another one on there. Okay, so your assignment is going to be this, and I would basically encourage you guys to maybe even discuss with a friend as you're doing this, compare with a friend. And then I have this on that same Google document. It's going to be due on Monday of next week. However, I think what we're going to do is we're going to come back to class. We'll probably look at several examples. And then if you have questions, if you say, well, I wrote this down, and then maybe I can, you can share your screen with me so I can see what you have down, and we can see if you got it right or if you got it wrong, and then I can give you a little bit of time to adjust these things if need be. So in your Google Classroom right now, you'll find the whole assignment for that Google Doc that you've already started, 2 simple arguments, and then 4 arguments, 2 deductive, 2 inductive, and then this one, another 4 arguments. 2 of them will be valid true arguments, like the Socrates one that we've looked at. 1 will be valid but false. That was the Meliana Trump one, right? It was a valid argument, but it wasn't true. And then finally, 1 invalid argument that is true. Every premise is true and the conclusion is true, but the construction is such so that it's not valid. And that would be the on Fridays we have chapel 1. Okay. And so that will all be in that one Google document. And then, like I say, you'll attach it and turn it in by Monday of next week. And so for your homework for this afternoon, the 45 minutes this afternoon, it's just working on these. Some of you may already be done. I think Ian's going to be like done in 3 minutes. And so I would also say, once again, please talk with your friends if you're struggling. Talk with a friend that you know kind of gets this. Because I'm not here in class to walk around like I normally do at this point and help you guys clarify your arguments. And so that is one of the weaknesses here of doing this over Zoom. Like, it's going to be hard for me to do that. And with that, that's really all I have for you guys. You can spend the rest of the class period if you want working on this, and then work on this in the afternoon. I'll have a recording of the class period. If you want to go back and rewatch because you don't quite get it, you can go back and rewatch any portion of this particular lesson. That would be fine. And also the Google Slides will be there for you to go back through as well. So you have all that information there, and then also use your friends. If you feel that your friends aren't going to help you enough and you want to sit, well, I guess not sit down, but you want to have a Zoom discussion with me to help clarify, send me an email. And then we'll set up a time either today, this afternoon, or tomorrow afternoon that we can kind of walk through these things and clarify. Any questions before I let you go? Okay, guys. Oh, Ian, yes.
Do you think if God made everyone a masochist, then that one argument would be false or be completely invalidated?
Let me go back and look. Okay. If we were all masochists.
Oh, I guess it wouldn't, because it still says he would prevent, not that he would, I guess, decidedly have the best for us.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the fact that he's a good
never
guy would
mind.
be false.
You'd have to change the wording a bit in order to make it work. But yeah, that's kind of a messed up thought.
My bad.
No, not your bad. Like you adjust it a little bit, and then you can make a really messed up argument based on us all being masochists. Okay, good question. Any other questions? All right, guys. Once again, let me know if you have any questions online. If you want to meet, that's fine. And we'll see you. Me and the Pope say peace out.